Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining the Silent So Loud podcast. Today, we're going to be talking mainly wrestling, and specifically, we're going to be talking about SummerSlam. And the reason why I wanted to come on and talk about it is I thought SummerSlam was one of the best. I shouldn't call it a pay per view anymore, but a premium live event. I'm getting used to saying that, the PLE. It was one of the best ones that I've seen in a very long time. I mean, start to finish, the flow of the show was just incredible, fantastic. Not a lot of content, not like a WrestleMania where you have two nights and a lot of downtime, just seven great matches. A lot of people online were saying that they believe that SummerSlam topped WrestleMania 40, which that's some big words, but I would not actually argue that SummerSlam was a better show than WrestleMania 40. Not that I have any, hiccups or problems with WrestleMania 40, but I do think that SummerSlam just totally delivered. And we'll just go over that real quick. Um, First of all, they had the show in Cleveland and they had a packed house, 57,000 or something. I don't know the exact number, but a packed house. Cleveland crowd delivered. That's so important for wrestling to have the crowd delivering and selling those matches. Just, keeping everybody awake, keeping the television audience awake. Cleveland delivered. And a couple years ago, I mean, probably not a couple years ago, going way back to the Jameis Winston days, I went to a Browns Buccaneer game here in Tampa, and I gotta say, Cleveland fans, I mean, they're pretty wild. I hung out before the game, and there's Brown fans everywhere. There's a guy with a Browns jersey on that says Cheese Dog, and he was asking us if we wanted to try his homemade tequila. Just very like nice people. I'd never been to Cleveland, Ohio, but from what I understand, pretty nice people. And like I said, you got to congratulate Cleveland for just bringing bringing the show, keeping the energy flowing, which affects wrestlers, just affects wrestlers, the audience, just everything. So good job, Cleveland, man. Like, I wish all cities were like that. It reminded me of like the Canadian crowds that you get. So let's go over the first match right out of the gate. Rhea Ripley comes out, and man, she can deliver. Rhea Ripley, if you remember WrestleMania 40, she's the one that came out first, and that speaks volumes that Rhea Ripley comes out first. Once again, she comes out first at SummerSlam because she just keeps that energy flowing for the show, and I thought that was great. A little bit predictable what happened that match. They put on a great match. Her and Liv Morgan put on a great match. A little bit predictable. I was texting a friend of mine and I said I think Dom turns tonight, and I think most wrestling audiences knew that Dirty Dom was going to do the turn. And so that was kind of like expected by, even though he did the turn, I think that the way that he timed it, you got to remember when these kids get raised on wrestling, like his father's a legend, when they get raised on wrestling, they have that advantage of knowing the timing of matches and knowing when to do certain things. So although I thought that Dirty Dom was going to turn on Rhea Ripley, the way he did it, the strategy to it was just a good seller, and the good timing of when he hooked up with Liv Morgan. So I think that was good, and I thought it was time for Rhea and Dom to just go their separate ways. I think that it's just Judgment Day in itself. We can maybe get into that in a little bit, but I think it's time for just things to be shook up, and I think that that's what SummerSlam was for wrestling. It was kind of like a good reset, if you will. If you think about it, we'll get through the fall, and then next thing you know, it's going to be WrestleMania 41 in Vegas, and we'll be talking about that. So I think SummerSlam was just a good kind of like, let's hit the button and go different directions. Then the next match, Braun Breaker. I mean, what can you say about this guy, Braun Breaker? Another one, father, Steiner, the Steiner brothers, father and uncle, legends in this business, and Braun Breaker. I'll go ahead and say it. I think this guy has the potential to be a Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock. I know it's premature to say this, but I believe that he is in line to be that next guy. And I know you hear that a lot, like, this guy is going to be the next guy, and then they kind of fizzle out. And it's really hard to say, but Braun Breaker he brings it. And he seems like he can hold his own in the mic, explosive in the ring, crowd reaction, and you just get that feeling that this is like going to be, a fast rise. When he lost to Sami Zayn before, I think he lost for one reason, and I think that was because Money in the Bank, not as big as SummerSlam. I mean, SummerSlam is your second biggest one, so I think they wanted to have him win the IC belt on the second biggest stage, and I think they did it. And Sami Zayn, I mean, Hall of Famer. I know he's far away from being done, but Sami Zayn, he is without a doubt your Rocky Balboa type of wrestler. The guy just can take bumps and take hits and just sell matches like you wouldn't believe. So Sami Zayn is just like, he is. If you don't like Sami Zayn, you don't like wrestling. So, like I said, I think he's your Rocky of wrestling today. But Braun Breaker, it's time. That guy, man, I think years from now we're going to be talking about that guy and how big he is. Then you go to the next match. LA Knight defeats Logan Paul. And once again, you see a belt change. LA Knight becomes a U.S. champion. And I definitely think that that's where LA Knight should be, is a U.S. champion. Do I think, and I'm not here to knock anybody. Do I think that LA Knight is on the rise of Braun Breaker? No, I don't. I think LA Knight has a draw, and he's great. So I think that the U.S. champion is a good fit for LA Knight. Now, Logan Paul, what can you say about him? Triple H goes on and on about how great of a wrestler he thinks that Logan Paul is. And I think, I'll admit I was one of those guys when the Pauls came around and I watched Jake Paul's boxing match, but we won't get into that in this segment. But, it's like, it's these social media guys, but Logan Paul made me eat my words of negativity that I said about him, because Logan Paul is just, he gets wrestling. He gets the business. He reminds me of HBK in his prime. He knows where to be in matches. He's got the entertainment value. He can talk on the mic. And Logan Paul is one of those guys, like, you see him wrestling, and this is where we get into like natural talent. And you see him wrestling, and you just assume that this guy has always been a WWE performer, sports entertainer, wrestler. You just assume that he's been doing it for a long time. And we forget that Logan Paul has not been doing this like that many matches, but his matches are always on a big level. And he's a show stealer. And like I said, back in the day, years ago, I heard about the Paul brothers. I know the other one's boxing, and he is a good boxer. He's a good boxer. There's no denying that. Some criticism from the boxing world about the Paul brothers, and I think it just comes with the territory because of them being your social media, YouTube guys or whatever. But you can't sit and bash talent. And I think that Triple H, being the chief content officer of WWE, he gets that Logan Paul is talent, so he doesn't knock them at all. Then you got the next match. Nia Jax goes on and defeats Bayley. Nia Jax was another one. People say, oh, she's boring, or, I've heard her called lazy. I don't know what it is about her, but I'll say this. To me, she put on the Queen of the Ring crown after the show, and she comes from, a wrestling family also. And I think that she fits that she's a champion, and Bayley has always been, great and has held the female side for a while. But I think that Nia Jax, once again, she fits that. Let's go a different direction. Let's give Nia Jax the belt. She's back. And I definitely think that she deserves that belt. So you got right there, you got the women's champion, you got the U.S. champion, you got the IC belt. Right there, 3 belts changing hands. So then you get into the next match, Drew McIntyre, CM Punk, right? If I had to knock, and I'm not knocking the match before I get criticized for that, but if I had to knock something, I would knock this. And the reason why is I know they had to throw in Seth Rollins in there, and he's the guest referee, but I'm one of those guys where anytime you have that special guest referee, I think that it takes away from what the two guys in the match are doing, because you're waiting for that moment. You know that that special guest referee is going to be up to something. You know that he's going to be up to something, and you're waiting for that moment, almost like the whole match. Like, all right, so when is it going to happen? Something's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know who he's going to turn on, but you're just waiting for that to happen. And to me, that's always a distraction, that because you can have two guys that are working a great match, but then you get that special guest referee and you're just waiting for the angle to be played out. Drew McIntyre beat CM Punk. They did the bracelet thing, and Seth Rollins put it on, and Punk's like needs a bracelet, and then he gets distracted or whatever. They're like, he lets his emotion get to him. And like I said, if I think all 7 matches were a good match, all of them. If I had to pick what I thought was the least best one, I would probably get it up there. And the reason why is I think that the whole CM Punk, Drew McIntyre, I have your bracelet from your family. I think that that thing has really been played out. It's just been played out almost like the way that the bloodline is being played out, but they were smart with the bloodline because they changed members, which makes it new, and we'll get into them and here shortly. But that would be my knock. And like I said, I think they delivered a great match before people say, oh, Drew and CM Punk delivered. They definitely delivered, but it's just that special guest referee thing that I talked about. Now, once again, WWE is so, I think what keeps them ahead, besides money, obviously, and the big time company that they are, is they are masters of knowing where are we going tomorrow? What is the future? Who is the future? If you go back to the Monday Night Wars and you compare the two, you see that, WWE was headed in that direction of, we're worried about tomorrow. And I felt like WCW was worried about right now and yesterday. And once again, I think AEW is great, but I think that WWE knows, okay, where are we headed and who's taking us there? And that brings me into this match. Gunther and Damian Priest. Gunther wins the match. Some people say, oh, he's boring, he's got a chop, he doesn't deliver. I think he's great. I think he's a fantastic wrestler. I think he looks like a wrestler. He operates like a wrestler. I think he's great. And I think that Damian Priest, the timing of all this is critical, because Damian Priest was one of those ones where when he won the title, the heavyweight championship, I was like, is he going to be a good champion? I think the short time frame that he had the belt, that he proved that he's champion material. But however, you only have so many belts. And I think that the direction that they're going, the vibe that I get with Braun Breaker being the IC champion, Nia Jax being the women's champion, LA Knight being US, Gunther becoming the world heavyweight champion, that they all have their eyes on the ball of the future, and that's what they're thinking, is that they can, I think that, not everybody can have that long Roman Reigns, streak of whatever many days, however many years he had the belt. So I know some people will be like, oh, Damian Priest isn't champion anymore. But with the angle that they're going with him, with the disintegration, or not, they're not gone, but the different direction of Judgment Day turning on him, and him being kind of like the solo operator with Rhea possibly on his side, or we know she's on his side. But I think that you take the belt off of him because he's going to go after Judgment Day because Finn Balor, interfered with the match and he's going to go after his guys at Judgment Day. So it's not really necessary for him to have the belt, right? And if you watch Monday Night Raw last night, you'll see that right off the bat, Randy Orton, who's going for that record of championships, right? Randy Orton is coming out for Gunther. So it shows how they know what they're doing. That the creators or writers, like they're on an A+ streak right now, and I hope it keeps going. That's why we're talking about wrestling. I hope it keeps going because you can tell that Randy Orton and Gunther is going to be a great match, but you're not bored with Damian Priest because you know what he's got going on with Judgment Day. So I think that it just all makes sense in my opinion. Then you get to the main event of the night with Cody Rhodes and Solo, the new tribal chief. And I know that there's mixed emotions about Cody Rhodes. Some people think he's a great champion. Some people think he's boring. Some people say he's mid card, right? No doubt his father. If you've listened to me before, you know the magnitude that his father means to me. Dusty Rhodes is one of my favorite all time wrestlers. And when I think of Cody, I definitely think he's a champion. I think he belongs. I think that he's doing a great run. But I've heard this before, and I think Shawn Michaels has said this before. It's everybody wants you to be the champion, but then when you get it, then everybody wants you to not be the champion. And I think that Cody has fallen into that category with some of the fans. And like I said, if you love him, great. If you don't like Cody as champion, maybe leave a comment, drop a comment why you don't think that Cody is a good champion. But he kind of strikes me that way that, we watched that Cody finish his story for 2 years and, go into being, Stardust and being kind of lost with his direction, his character, going to AEW and then shocking the world and leaving AEW and coming back to WWE. And I think he fits into that he has the belt, and now because he does have the belt, the haters want somebody else to be the guy. So I guess my question would be, who do you think that guy is? If you don't think that it's Cody Rhodes, if he has the potential to carry the company, say the way that John Cena did for a while, where he was like the Hulk Hogan, the guy, the face for the company. Who do you think it is? I mean, you could easily argue that it's Roman Reigns, which we'll get into him in a second. But if you don't think it's Cody, leave a comment. I'm open to hearing why you don't think it's Cody, and I'd also love to hear why you do believe that it's Cody. So that match, it has bloodline rules, and once again, it strikes me as a special guest referee match. You go bloodline rules, okay, what's coming? So all the interference is coming, and I do like the new bloodline members. I would actually say that the new bloodline that they have completely switched out, that they seem more dangerous than the old bloodline with Roman Reigns and the Usos. Like they to me, they seem like they're more dangerous. If they're lacking anything, I would say that Roman Reigns was more of a convincing tribal chief than Solo is. I think that Solo is doing good for the most part, but to be like he's the new tribal chief, I don't know if he's quite there. I don't think that he's quite there, but I think that the bloodline, the team that they put together is definitely more intimidating than the old bloodline, if that makes any sense. So I believe that if you had Roman Reigns as tribal chief with this new bloodline, then man, that would be like NWO type material where you're just intimidated by these guys. And it's hard to say what direction they're going. You know, before I get ahead of myself, Roman Reigns came out at the end, and everybody's standing up. Everybody at home is awake when they're looking at their TV because you hear Roman Reigns is coming out. New character, he's going to be a total baby face. OTC, the original tribal chief. It's a good direction for him to go total baby face. And I believe that that will set up The Rock coming back and The Rock being a heel. And I think it will set up Roman Reigns versus The Rock in Vegas and WrestleMania 41. But you never know with injuries, with fans and storylines, the way they can change. But I think that it will have something to do with The Rock coming back. And maybe he'll face Cody, because I know he told Cody that he's going to come for him or whatever when he does come back. But I think that if you have Roman Reigns as a total baby face and The Rock, who is so good at being the heel, in my opinion, he's a better heel than a baby face. If he comes back as a heel and maybe he becomes tribal chief, or I don't know, I think that bloodline thing, like there's only so many things that you can do, but you know, the change of characters, it's like a soap opera where you just change out the actors, but the storyline just keeps going. And I think that that's what they're doing. It'll be interesting to see so many heavy players, like what direction they're going to go. And then you got to ask yourself, too, where's Cody going to go from this? Because he's had 2 Bloodline Rule matches and he's won both of them. So do you keep going Bloodline with him? And I also think that these Bloodline Rule matches, because you're waiting for that outside interference to come in, that kind of takes over the match. Because I thought that Cody and AJ Styles had a great match, and I thought that was one of his better matches was with AJ Styles and the I Quit match. So what direction are they going to go with Cody? Who's going to be coming for that title? It's too early to say, but like I said, wrestling, SummerSlam, I'll give it an A+, one of the best events I've seen in a very long time. And then Monday Night Raw, they came on last night and they followed it up with a great Monday Night Raw. You can't close this segment without talking about the Wyatt Six. I think that they are absolutely timing that, the Wyatt group, they're timing that perfectly. And they go after Chad Gable and the Creed brothers. And who are they going to go after next? You figure these Wyatt guys are not playing around. They're all delivering. Who's going to be the next group that they go after? I say maybe they go after Judgment Day next. I could see that being a good rival. Down the road, maybe they go after the Bloodline. It's hard to say where they go. But the Wyatt Six, they actually wrestled last night and proved that they can all 3 wrestle, with Uncle Howdy just sitting there watching. And we know that Bo can wrestle, right? And some people were worried about that. Is this more of a storyline than wrestling? And I think that all the people that were worried about that, those concerns should be gone, because we know Bo can wrestle, just like his brother Bray Wyatt, which just an absolute legend in all ways, taken way too early from us. But the guys in the Wyatt Six proved last night that not only can they do the whole haunted house scary characters with the mask, but they know how to wrestle. And so that's got to be a relief if you were concerned about that. Like, is this going to be one of those where they just play the storyline and then you get the person in the ring and they cannot deliver? And I think that that's all gone. So that's all I really got to say. Just wanted to come on and talk strictly wrestling. And we're glad that you listened. And if you have any comments, anything that you want to add, feel free to leave the comments. And thank you for listening to the Silent So Loud podcast. Have a great day.